Good morning, and thank you for coming to today's regular agenda for the San Benito County Board of Supervisors for 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. Call to order at 9 o'clock exactly. Pledge of Allegiance. Can I have Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Jerry Munzer? And can we make this in honor of Memorial Weekend?
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was wondering if we were supposed to stand.
You were supposed to. That's okay. We're good. Can I have a acknowledgement certificate of posting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Next item on the agenda will be presentations and recognitions. Do we have any today? None. Moving on. D, public comment. This is an opportunity to address the board of items of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action will be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 54954-2. Do you have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, member of the board, Marty Richmond from Hollister. As mentioned by the chairman, Monday will be Memorial Day, and we will honor the fallen who died while they were on service to their country, no matter how they passed. It doesn't matter if they died in an accident, if they died on active duty, if they were ill. It includes everyone. And we can only do so much for them. We can go to the cemetery and we'll put out wreaths and flags. But working on a theme I worked on last year and many years before, their families live on and their friends live on. Many of their comrades, veterans who are in need live on. And the best memorial we can give them is to take care of their families, take care of the veterans in need. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Any other speaker cards?
Yes. Victor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Victor Gomez. I'm actually here wearing my board member hat for Goodwill Silicon Valley, and I just wanted to take the time to thank Supervisor Munzer, Supervisor Botello for touring the Goodwill location in San Jose, our large distribution center. We're looking for certainly opportunities to integrate ourselves into the community. We've had the Goodwill Silicon Valley location here in Hollister for a number of years, and again, we appreciate both of you taking the time to go up. I look forward to maybe taking some of the others up as well on a tour, but really what Goodwill is looking forward to doing is really finding ways to program, to insert programs into the community here with your county staff, with this local jurisdiction, and really work toward programs that could potentially alleviate some of the constraints that you may be having within your programming here that you're funding through your general fund. Goodwill Silicon Valley raises a lot of money to insert these types of programs, helping folks with job placement and workforce development. And again, we look forward to those opportunities and partnering with the county on those topics. So to Supervisor Rivas, De La Cruz, and Medina, at your convenience, we'd love to be able to also take you on a tour in the future as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Elias Salinas.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and County Supervisors. I am asking to be placed on your next agenda to consider those applicants that are currently cultivating in South County. When they started, they didn't realize that South County was going to be banned, so we are requesting that you consider that they finish off their season and move out of the banned area. So if you could please add me to your agenda so we can discuss this further, I'd really appreciate it. Questions?
I'll take this advice under consideration and talk to our CEO about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else from the public?
Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I happened to stop into the ag a building down there on Southside, and when I was sitting there, I seen a couple of kids skateboarding on the roof of the hospital. And I didn't think fast enough, but I probably should have took a picture, but that really concerns me of our liability as a county. I don't know where you're at on that, but I've informed you, so.
Thank you for the information. Anyone else from the public? None? Okay. Moving on. Shoot. Next item is department head announcements.
Yeah, we have a few announcements out of our offices. We have Joe Paul Gonzalez, our controller, auditor controller here with the department head announcement.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. Joe Paul Gonzalez, County Clerk, Auditor, and Recorder. Today, I'd like to introduce you to the county's new Assistant Auditor Controller, Diane Leha Wahid. And if Diane comes with is a CPA and comes with a lot of experience working for two of the big four CPA firms in private accounting. She's done a lot of auditing, so you know she was a perfect pick for the auditor's office. And would you like to say a couple words?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Joe Paul, for the introduction. I'm definitely happy to be here. I was born and raised in Hollister, and I'm a product of San Benito High. Did most of my career in Silicon Valley and actually also internationally, but I'm very happy to bring it home and bring it forward. Thank you.
Good. You'll stop using Highway 25 now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Paul. Another item is I had the opportunity to attend CSAC last week. We're able to listen to a few good sessions, and one of the important sessions out of the CAOAC meeting was the work that CSAC has done with the CAOs as well as many staff members within CSAC to address the IHSS item, and it looks like we're not going to have to use reserves for that. I think our allocation was about $675,000. There's going to be some other mechanisms that they're going to use, 1991 realignment and a few other things. So, but again, we have to keep an eye on that in the next 3 years. It looks like there's going to be some things that we're going to have to address. With that being said, I just wanted to let the board know that we do have some reprieve in the first year or two, and then 3, 4, and 5 we're going to have to look at it a little closer. So we'll have to work with our Health and Human Services office. The other thing is I had an opportunity to speak a little bit concerning, or in the CAOAC meeting with the Grizzly Academy program. We had a general there presenting, and that was the item that I had brought to your board a bit ago. So there's been a lot of interest with the CAOs to utilize that program for probation, gang of five, or gang prevention within their local community. So that was a good item. So, and there's quite a few other things, but I just wanted to highlight those two. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Board announcements, Supervisor Medina.
No, Chairman.
Supervisor Patello.
Yes, I'm happy that Victor, Mr. Gomez, made it to a meeting, and thanked Supervisor Munzer and myself for taking that Goodwill Industries tour. Well worth the time. and you get a different perspective as far as what's out there and how we could address the needs of some of the folks in our own community and try to help them. And I certainly hope that the other supervisors have the opportunity to go up there and see for themselves what we need down here. I think Mr. Gomez is a good representative from Hollister on that board to make sure that some of those services will be made available in the future. And I'm excited with our homeless center programs going to be taken off the ground this year, that eventually we could evolve into some sort of partnership with organizations such as Goodwill Industries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make a request. I hope this is County Council is not going to get mad at me, of the ad hoc committee to reach out to the earlier speaker on the South County marijuana grow and maybe invite her to your next meeting and see if you can address that issue at that time. Also, I want to thank Mr. Betancourt for, again, bringing to light the need of removing that county hospital building. And I don't know if I want to agendize it to be discussed and a timetable set up for an RFP and what we can do. I think I do. I think I want to have it agendized, and so because he's right. This is a dangerous building. It's a public nuisance. There is no way we can keep the kids out of it, and apparently the kids are on top of it. That building needs to go away. So if we can agendize that, Mr. Chair.
Who's the member? Who's on the facilities committee? I would recommend you guys take a shot at it first and then come back to the board.
Yeah, and it's been an ongoing discussion, and with the facilities, we have it budgeted, and with the kind of the plans going forward with the Southside Hospital, with our partner there, we're hoping that they were going to have the revenue and funds to tear it down. Yeah. But we're supposed to have a meeting this week to discuss that administratively, and maybe we need to just move forward with it.
Okay, then let the committee meet and then report to the board.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
Support next meeting on June 13th.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
That is good, Mr. Chair. I accept that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, hold on. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I was just going to recap that, staff has been working with our facility committee on addressing that issue. Obviously, there's some issues with the CSDC and there's some issues that come with that moving forward with the brownfield item as well, the brownfield grant. So we'll come back to your board. We actually have a meeting scheduled. I already have that scheduled this week, and we'll come back to the board after.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I too want to thank former Councilman Gomez for the invite to the Goodwill Distribution Center. And I had the privilege of first time ever eating dried apricot pits. All the years I've eaten apricots and thrown the pits away, I never knew the pits were also good. But they were bagging them up for sale up there, and it was just one of many things that they do at that facility that's very amazing. And lastly, I want to thank former Supervisor Reb Monaco and his work with the Monterey Bay Air District on our annual calendar coloring contest. He goes out to many of the rural schools in San Bernardino County, promotes this contest, and every year San Bernardino County is well represented with the winners of the contest, and their pictures are included in next year's calendar. And Reb works very hard at seeing that happens, and I just want to thank him and let everyone know that of the three county, San Bernardino County has the most representation in this contest. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Perfect, thank you. I'll make mine real brief. I'm sorry, I apologize. Supervisor Rivas?
No announcements, Mr. Chair.
Wow, I forgot. Sorry about that. Mine is real brief. I wasn't able to attend the CSAC conference last week, and thank God our CEO went on our behalf. Thank you very much. But I did attend the board meeting through telephone conference, and 3 issues of concern. And the first one is the separation of affordability continues to get wider and wider, to the point where government is now asking the private sector to come in and help out, address low-income housing, address affordable housing for our community members. No longer can government do it, but now it's partnerships. And they're preaching those words, and they're asking for assistance, and they're asking that local governments find ways how to work with the private industry, private development, to create low-income, affordable, and low-income housing for our residents and our citizens, because that gap continues to widen by the day. The next item that got my interest, and I think Ray talked a little bit about it, and that is that in-home support services is going to get harder for San Benito County and every other county. It's going to continue to cost a lot of money, and the federal government will not help us, and if they do, it will be at a minimum. Therefore, that burden or that backfill will need to be backfilled by local general fund money. And realignment 1991, it's at stake. That very same money that is used to fund other programs at stake because of the in-home support services. So it's just a little reminder out there. And the third item that I learned at this hearing or discussion is that we got a big mess when it comes to local roads. SB 1 is not going to solve everything for small counties. In fact, small counties will probably get hit the hardest. And so we need to continue to provide other revenues or other options in which we can continue to support and find funding for local roads. Unfortunately, XP 1 actually kind of put a wrench in the public's trust, because we were thinking of going for a sales tax on just roads, but now we're just giving some second thoughts about it. So I don't know where it stands, but we're going to face some problems down the road. You wait. When gasoline prices hit above $3.50 a gallon, we will have a revolt by the community. Thank you, and that concludes my brief presentations. There's been a request to remove item. Where is it at? Remove item number 20. Shoot, I don't have it on my thing.
I think
What's
13.
it?
13.
13, thank you. Remove item 13. Staff.
Mr. Chairman.
Actually, can you guys hold on a minute, please? Staff and I both agree that it's still not completed. However, if any of the supervisors wish to leave it on the agenda, I'm going to hear ideas and suggestions. But before we do that, County Council, in light of the new information that was presented to me yesterday, is this something that we can go into closed session, and is it allowable as an urgency item?
Yes, the board could make a finding. Board could make a finding under 4/5 vote that there's the need to go into closed session pursuant to 54956.9, I believe, came to the board's attention after the posting of the agenda, and that it cannot reasonably wait until the next agenda. So that would have to be a motion.
Okay. Is there a vote to? Is there a motion to accept this as an emergency item and go into closed session? Okay, so it won't go to closed session. Okay, so is there any fellow supervisors that wish to keep the item on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully ask you to keep this item on the agenda so we can discuss this in full detail.
Is there another supervisor?
I'm in a second. Is it a motion?
No, I just want to hear from two supervisors.
I definitely think we need to resolve this today once and for all.
Then we will allow discussion. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, do any of the fellow supervisors wish to pull any of the consent items out of the agenda? Medina?
No, sir.
None? Patello? Munzer?
Robert doesn't allow me to.
Rivas? Thank you. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public wish to pull any of the items of consent? None? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval on the consent, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. All right, regular item number 11, County Council, Ray Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this item, as your board is aware, has come from a request from your board to look at CMs to move forward with our jail project. And 2 meetings ago, if I recall correctly, your board asked for me to go reach out to 3 individuals or 3 companies and receive quotes. So, since that time, I actually have reached out to three companies. I've reached out to Kitchell Construction, Vanner Construction, and both those are reputable jail CMs. And then, CMs, and then also a local reputable construction management builder for buildings, which is a Felice Construction Company. With that being said, I did not receive a quote from Kitchell. They were not willing to provide me a quote. They felt that the project, we didn't have enough funds to move forward with the project. They just did not want to provide a quote. So in your packet, you'll see 2 quotes. There's an updated quote just addressed to me from Vanner that you may have. I think the clerk has passed that out. And also, a statement of qualifications from Vanner that were unfortunately missed on our staff report. With that being said, I just wanted to highlight that there's been a lot of work that we've worked with Vanner on many projects. The project that we're sitting in today is a building that they helped out with on the CMing, as well as our current jail, and other facilities within our county. They've also were hired to help us with looking at pre-qualification bids, and to assist us with moving forward with the project back in February of 2017. There's been quite a few things that they've come across, 600 potential conflicts in design, large potential savings for the long-term part of the project, which is significant. And that one of the reasons why your board actually moved forward with bringing them on board, to make sure that our long-term cost and potential of reducing our $5 million gap down. They've also, per your board's request, as well as the sheriff at our last board retreat in February, had concerns of communication. And Vanner Construction actually has facilitated weekly update meetings. I've been a part of a few of the meetings, very professional, and also making sure the project is continuing and moving forward. We're on track. A big part of that is from Adam, our RMA office, as well as, I think, Vanner, too, to help us kind of pushing us forward. Within the quote, they are, there's no, if for some reason your board does not move forward with the project, there's no, they will not do the work. Also, too, the fees, Banner's fee proposal is very reasonable. If you look at the quote itself, the one attached in the back, I believe, you'll notice it's actually a percentage of the total cost is about 4.22%. And from my understanding, reaching out and doing some research on this, about 6% is the going rate. So it's a pretty good deal. And I think that we have a relationship already built up with them. Our recommendation, staff's recommendation, is to move forward with them. They've done about $21 billion of construction, and they specialize in jails. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind in the forefront. So with that, I believe both parties are here. I know we have representation from Vanner. I'm not sure if Felice is here. If he is, I've only talked to him on the phone. Okay, so with that being said, I just wanted to pass it back to your board to let you know that staff is recommending to move forward with Vanner, and Vanner is here to ask or answer any questions your board may have.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Munzer? Supervisor Botello? Supervisor Medina? None?
Thanks, sir.
Let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public? I'll close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion for staff recommendation.
Is there a second? Second. Motion by Patel, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Make us proud. Okay, number 12. Request that the Board of Supervisors find good cause to continue holding the hearings on the application for the extended administration for an additional 118 days, blah, 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 blah.
Good morning, Board. Sarah Dickinson, Deputy County Counsel. So I know we came to the Board before with a certain group of the applicants asking for the 180 days. We are asking for the additional, or the remainder of those applicants to be 180 days extension for the hearings to be held. Previously, the Board had requested the hearings be set for today, but we did ask the applicants for additional information due to the lack of evidence that they had supplied in their initial applications. And we did receive some information back, and that is information that we do have to go through and assess and evaluate, and to make our determinations or recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. In addition, it's become very clear, based upon the information that we've been going through, as well as speaking with some of the applicants and their attorneys, that simply having all these applicants on for one afternoon would be nearly impossible. So it would be possible to maybe put this on for a special meeting of the Board of Supervisors, perhaps for one full day, or if the Board would perhaps like to split this up into groups based upon staff recommendation of ones who would probably have longer hearings due to the fact that they have more evidence to be evaluating, and I'm sure that they would like to present that to you as well. So we are asking for the additional or the extension of 180 days for the hearing, and then also to be setting the hearing out sometime in June or July.
I got a quick question both to you and to staff. Have we developed a process in which how we're going to evaluate the applicants?
There has been some forms that have been developed from County Council as well as from Code Enforcement.
So then you can actually go into these applicants, go blindfolded, and make a determination on see if they meet a consistent requirement. Checklist, right?
Sure, a checklist for sure, and definitely there were guidelines within the statute, or excuse me, in the ordinance itself. For example, being in compliance with state law, and certainly I think it's Cal Crim 3414, which I know is a jury instruction in the criminal sense, but certainly it provides guidance in the way that juries are to be looking at whether or not collectives or cooperatives are functioning under state law, and that is some guiding principle for us.
And then whatever determination the board makes, that's final, right? There's no appeal process? Can they appeal?
There is no appeal process in that. Certainly, we are also going to be rolling out likely the new cannabis businesses ordinance. So in terms of the administrative appeal, there would be no process for that, but certainly they would have their rights to go to the Superior Court via a writ of execution or an appeal to the Superior Court.
Got it. All right, thank you. Questions, fellow supervisors? Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, this is kind of has been burdensome for the board and for our staff. And I know the committee is working hard with the consultant to get this ordinance online. Is it getting so far down the path that, should we be looking at use permits rather than just a temporary allowance for growing? Or we get to that point where, it appears to me that the timeline for the ordinance is almost on this parallel track as, it's starting to maybe allow for issuances of use permits.
I understand the question, and those are two very separate things. Certainly, with the rollout of a new cannabis business ordinance, it is distinct from the amortization extension under 11.15. It is a good question, but these should be looked at separately.
Yeah, because, I'm not familiar with if any of these are South County operations, and in my mind, any commercial or cooperative operations is not allowed, whether you filed the application or not. But especially if you're not part of this list.
And when you are describing South County, is that because that's one of the new proposed provisions of the Cannabis Businesses Ordinance?
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Is that you're bringing up South County because of the proposed new Cannabis Businesses Ordinance?
Right. Well, yeah.
Which
in
we
the
don't
proposed
currently
ordinance,
have.
and which, I certainly strongly support for my own reasons, but
I think that because we're on a fast track for this ordinance as quickly as we can do it, so the goal is to take it back to the Planning Commission in June, then to the Board of Supervisors in July. So I think that although they are two separate issues, it's up to the board about when they want to hear it. But I think that there also is some value to see whether the ordinance gets adopted in July and then have the hearings after the adoption of the ordinance. But it's up to the board whether they want to schedule it sooner.
And would I be wrong as one supervisor basing my decisions whether to approve or disapprove of any of the applicants based on the proposed ordinance?
You really have to not base it upon the proposed ordinance. It would be the facts that they submitted about their investments and their existing operations and how long they've been in operation, what their expenditures have been, what they've invested into the property and whether there's a specific taking. But so it's a separate issue from the new ordinance, but after the new ordinance is adopted, then you'll see who qualifies for the new ordinance as well.
Okay, I needed to ask that question and hear that answer, and that helps me a lot. Because some of these operations obviously are not in areas that is being proposed as allowable, and it's a different ballgame once we adopt the ordinance. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
So if we were to do the hearings and then approve some of these requests, knowing that they don't comply with the new ordinance that we're about to approve, they will be grandfathered in, correct?
Only in the sense of the extended amortization period for which you're allowing them. The new guidelines, they would still, if they want to be in operation after that period of time, in 2018, the state is going to have certain guidelines that they're requiring. And so certainly they would be required to be in compliance with those state guidelines as well. So the question is, could they also simultaneously be applying for that permit? And certainly, they would be.
So there's no someone getting a leg up on all the rest of the applicants?
There's no leg up here. It's because of the timing, it seems that way, and I can understand there might be an appearance of that, but certainly if you have an extended amortization, that is for the growing period. That has nothing to do with the MCURSA regulations. That's simply looking at the old MMPA and CUA laws.
Okay. All right. Any other questions before I open it to the public?
Yes.
Supervisor Medina.
Just, I heard something come out of your mouth about the state. Now, I want to make sure that I understand this right. We can be more strict than the state, correct?
Correct. On certain things, as long as the state doesn't prohibit you from doing it, that's correct.
Okay, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because, once again, my big thing is the outdoor growing.
Right.
The state allows outdoor growing. We can still not allow outdoor. It can be in a controlled location in a controlled building.
Correct, and there are certain licenses that do describe the mixed light or the completely indoor light.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public?
Peter Brazil.
Good morning, supervisors, staff. My name is Peter Brazil. I'm an attorney for L&G, representing numerous clients in the county. Supervisor Botello hit the exact issue I was going to speak on today. I've been to many of these Board of Supervisors hearings dealing with this subject, and I've probably spoken on this very issue maybe once or twice before, kind of making the argument of using an efficient use of the county resources here, and that this amortization process, though it has some attributes that are not going to be incorporated into the permanent permitting process, it does have many attributes like proving that you're compliant with state regulations and whatnot that will be similar. Given the fact that we now have a draft ordinance, and it is weeks to a month and a half away, probably most likely from being put in place, it seems like it's a bit of a waste of the county resources and time to go through this process twice, and what benefits you derive by going through this. I'm making this argument from a position of experience in the fact that we just went through this in Monterey County as well. And Monterey County had a similar problem, though it wasn't amortization they were contemplating, it was a form of enforcement. They got their ordinance in place, they saw permitting on the horizon, they decided instead we would start accepting taxes, we would bridge them over to the permitting process, and since that permitting process was very defined, they would just go through it that way. And I'm making the same argument here. You're going to run into all sorts of problems having it. Again, we just heard it today. Are you going to do these people all in one hearing? Are you going to do it in two? You guys, I'm not sure to what extent you may have put in the steps that you're going to take to decide who gets to continue in the amortization process and who doesn't. I'm just making the argument that county resources are probably better spent in finalizing the permanent ordinance and vetting all of these applicants completely. If they do not qualify, they do not qualify. Supervisor Medina, on your question, MRCSA and the state have been pretty clear. They're going to give quite a bit of local control on this issue. Monterey County has banned outdoor grow in its entirety. You can only grow indoor and you can only go in greenhouses. There are many other jurisdictions that have made the same findings. Outdoor grows, the only one that I know right now in the local area is San Luis Obispo County that's contemplating outdoor. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else from the public? None? Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move to reschedule the hearings, or I move to request that the Board of Supervisors find good cause to continue holding the hearings on the applications for an extended amortization for an additional 180 days for certain applicants.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, under the question, certain applicants, what does that mean?
Ones that are listed? All the listed applications?
You mean all listed applicants?
Well, I'm just reading it from the actual.
So that implies all applicants, right? Okay.
So all applicants.
That's on the list right now?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions? Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, as far as the process, I know staff has been vetting these applications and possibly bringing back, I think, which would be appropriate, Mr. Chair, bringing back a schedule so that way we can anticipate whether it's going to be a special meeting, a regular meeting, if we're going to take them all at once, whether we're going to be able to break them up. I think that would probably help.
Good idea. Good idea.
Help this process.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, so let's develop a schedule. We'll pick a day and then we'll send it to the board of supervisors, see if those days are available, and we'll go from there. Okay, good idea. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next
So
item.
bring it back at a future meeting?
Yes, bring it back to the meeting. Next item is number 13. Give me a minute. Shoot. Okay, here we go. 13. Cancel.
I just want to see what he said.
Supervisor Medina? Okay, actually, I'll start this off. Right after the board approved no on requesting additional permits in consideration of building the stop sign first, Brian Curtis approached me and asked me if there's anything else that the county can do to reconsider the position. I said, fine, bring me something that I can come back to our CEO, Ray Espinosa, and then we'll discuss. He did bring up a proposal, an idea, and I brought it to Ray, and I said, Ray, what do you think? Can we do this? And basically it was that Brian was going to put the money in an account and be able to build the stoplight within September 1st, I think so. That was the idea. And the condition that he will be allowed to ask for more permits. So Brian talked to Ray, and Ray says, yes, okay, no problem. We can put it on the agenda. And then a couple of days ago, we received a letter, and that's why I asked our county council if it was important to discuss that letter in closed session before we discuss it today. And because the board didn't felt it was necessary, the discussion will be held today. So the item here before us today is for us to reconsider the no vote on see if we can work with Santana Ranch and the board of supervisors on allowing to release more permits in consideration of building or creating that street light in some future date. And so that's the update of it. Supervisor Medina?
Yes. Last night at about 4 o'clock, that's when we received the letter. And this letter was stating, according to the Santana Ranch Legal, due to some imminent domain issues, the light on Clearview and Sunny Slope, in theory, does not need to be built by Santana Ranch. So the developers are now telling us they don't have to build this light. Although they do say they will build the light, but it's going to take them 6 to 9 months, which in my role it's unacceptable. I have spoken with Mr. Curtis several times throughout the week, and this developer had an agreement. The agreement was to build this light prior to the 145th permit being issued. So now, not only are they trying to get out of that due to reasons they are pointing at the city and the county, which in my mind, it's lack of planning on their part. Once again, they were able to build 145 houses and do all the improvements over there, but they ignored this stoplight. Now we may be making a mountain out of a molehill on this issue, but the idea here is we need to hold everyone, whether it's this company or any other companies, accountable for what they say they're going to do in this county. So we've had several discussions how we could mediate this, and none of the things transpired. So we received this letter yesterday at a little bit after 4, and I'm appalled. And I just think, once again, we need to hold strong and not allow them to pull any other permits until we can negotiate something or until that light is up. Thank you.
Thank you. In fairness, I will allow the applicant to speak, and then our CEO to follow up, and then we will continue with board discussion.
Good morning. I'm Brian Curtis with Stone Creek Properties. I was before you at your last meeting with a traffic study saying that the signal wasn't warranted at 145 permits, and I believe the board fairly clearly stated that they weren't interested in delaying that signal and that you wanted us to adhere to the development agreement as it was currently approved. And, you know, I have no problem following the development agreement and the timelines in it. Now, the situation that we had with the right-of-way is not a new problem or unforeseen problem. Your development agreement has a clause in it or a section in it dealing with eminent domain, and it lists the procedures that we should follow should we have the problem that we actually encountered. The last sentence of that section in the development agreement states, in the event the county determines not to pursue eminent domain of the off-site land, the owner's obligation in connection with that aspect of the project infrastructure that necessitated the acquisition of the off-site land shall terminate and be of no further force. So in this instance, it was the city that declined to pursue their power of eminent domain, not the county, because the signal is located in the city. Now, I'm here today not to get out of the traffic signal. I'm ready to start this afternoon. At our last meeting, I did not have plans, so I couldn't proceed, but I now have approved plans. I'm ready to start the instant I walk out the door. I'm prepared to post the funds to secure the constructions. I have the money in an account already. I can give the paperwork to your county council. So they're in an account that can be controlled by the county. I can give you periodic updates to the progress, if you like, at any interval you want. I need approximately 9 months to build the signal. The poles are Caltrans specifications. The only location to get those poles is Colorado because there's special welding and special inspection, and it's a 16-week time frame to get those poles. Now you may think, well, why didn't you order those poles sooner? I can't order that equipment until I have approved plans. I don't want to have ordered those earlier and come August and come back to you and say, you know, I ordered the wrong parts, I need another 6-month delay. That's just a recipe for disaster if you proceed without approved plans. So now that I have plans, I can order my poles, I can start. There's a lot I can do without the poles. I can put in the footings, the loops, the conduit, the surface improvements. Once the poles are available, we can drop those in and wire them up and start the signal. So all I'm asking today is that you release our building permits. You know, our project has stopped. We've sold 180 lots to another developer. His project stopped. We have probably 300 workers on site that will soon be looking for another job. There's a big revenue stream the county could receive from our impact fees and our increased property values. You know, we formed a CFD to be revenue neutral. The funding of that CFD stops when we have no new homes joining that program. And in our development agreement, we have some big ticket amenities that we need to construct. We have some large parks to construct. We have over 100 affordable houses to build. Those items come a little bit later in our build-out program, but we can't get to those items unless we get past this 145 permit trigger. So I'm offering that I'll start today if you lift the building permit restriction. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Hold on, Brian. Ray Espinosa? Or Barbara? Ray or Barbara?
Do you want to talk about it?
The county's reviewed the letter submitted on yesterday's date, and the county is not swayed by the analysis in that letter, in the fact that the improvements can be constructed without the additional right-of-way pursuant to what's been agreed to with the city of Hollister. So there is no need for eminent domain in light of the plans and that has been approved by the city of Hollister. Plus, there was an additional requirement, to do a meet and confer process. And also, we don't believe that this is a grounds for excusable delay, because it's not like an act of God or something that's unforeseen, that's beyond the control of the party. So we believe that the condition stands if the board chooses to enforce that condition as written.
Ray?
Yeah, I'd just like to add on a little bit. Originally part of the DA, I was not a part of the negotiations, but one of the concerns that I see today and what I'm seeing through this process is that we have another trigger date with another streetlight in the future. I think it's 500 homes or thereabouts on Fairview and Hillcrest. And, one of the conversations that we had were the possibility to start in good faith that process, because one of my thoughts or my concerns that I want to share with the board is I don't want to see this happen again. We're going to be sitting here and we'll be discussing more or less the same thing because there's so many anomalies. And I believe that particular streetlight has a lot more agencies involved, and there's probably going to be a lot more hurdles that will be confronted. So one of the conversational pieces is that is to possibly move that forward as well. That's not part of it. We haven't really talked about that part yet, but I was hoping that you might be able to comment on that.
I have no problem starting design of that signal and submitting plans to the county, within, say, 90 days. I have no problem starting that signal up.
And just to add, there was, I think, a change as well that the city finally, I think, had signed off on permit. So I think that's another added or change from our last board meeting. But that's about it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Ray. Supervisor Botello?
Yes, thank you. I just have a question, Mr. Curtis. We had a chance to talk yesterday afternoon for, 10, 15 minutes on the phone about this issue. And I wasn't aware of these letters were sent, but regardless, it doesn't make any difference with what my position was last time. But reading through the packet that was submitted to us, these stoplights when I was making the decision to support the development and the DA development agreement, a big portion of that was put into lights, and that was the traffic mitigation. And you had said that you're paying traffic impact fees, but according to a development agreement, it's quite a bit less than what other developers are now currently paying. And traffic safety certainly. That's why we had the trigger points in there, and I can't get past those trigger points and jeopardize, public safety, and that's regardless with whether or not the other projects in the city have been built. And I really don't, I respect City of Hollister for their, decision and position, but my voters live in the City of Hollister. And so how do I get past the safety aspect and allow one more permit for, one more traffic trip on Sunny Slope Drive when we don't have the sidewalks in place and things like that, and make matters worse, not having a stoplight, and same could be said about Hillcrest. Do you have any sort of rationale that how we overlook the safety component?
Well, I pursued building this signal starting September 2015, and all I do is infrastructure improvements my entire life, and I pursued that as diligently as I could, and it's taken me almost 2 years to get approved plans. The signal that we built at Fairview and Sunny Slope Road took 2.5 years to get plans approved, and an additional 6 months to construct. So that's 3 years for that signal. These items are just a long time frame due to the government agencies and the process of plan checking. Staff's turning over, there's a lot going on that makes this a slow process. So I've been proceeding as fast as I could. I've known all along of this deadline. There was nothing more that I could do. I can't force the city to take action. That they're their own agency. I've done everything I can to build that signal as fast as possible.
Yeah, well, I have a confession to make. When I voted for this project and voted for the traffic mitigations and saw the number of stoplights that this project would have to participate in, I really thought you were paying the full bore of it. I guess it's just a portion of it. But regardless, that was a big part of the decision for me to allow the project to even move forward without paying, and you do have a little benefit with not paying the full bore traffic impact fees that we have today. You have a discount, and you know, in my mind, I needed the stoplights. I can't give you the discount and not have the stoplights. So would you be willing to pay the full impact fees if we defer the stoplights?
We would prefer to stick with the development agreement that we have. You know, we're not the sole owner. There's probably 5 owners involved. You know, it's a complicated decision. We would like to keep the development agreement as it is. You know, when we entered into the development agreement, their traffic fee wasn't set. The development agreement says that we must adhere to whatever traffic program the county adopts in the future. And a year or two later, they adopted the fee program and we accepted it. You know, the fact that the county increased their fees later down the road, you know, is something that we can't control.
Well, and I could understand that, and I think that's the point that I wanted to make. I want to stick with the development agreement as we agreed upon, and that means 145 permits, and then the stoplight needs to be put in. After that, then there's no more permits from my perspective anyway. Thank you.
Supervisor Medina?
Just so we are clear on this, when we're talking about the competitive advantage you have on per house, it comes out to about $9,000 per house. Can you explain how that was derived? When we're looking at the impact fees, your savings of the whole project is probably about $10 million versus what people would have to pay now. Can you explain so people can hear your side of the story of how that transpired?
The traffic impact fee that the county adopted after our development agreement was approved, I think was $5,000 plus per house. And your DA says that whatever the county adopts, we're forced to adhere to, so that's the fee. I think recently the county adopted a new traffic fee that's in the neighborhood of $15,000 per unit. I think the county changed the amount of roads in their program, and that's what triggered the increased fee.
That's right.
You know,
So at this point in time, you would agree that you have about almost 9 to 10K advantage over someone that started a project now?
we may have an advantage on traffic fees. I don't know if the other projects have the same park requirements. You know, we're double paying for parks that I don't believe the other projects are doing. We're required to dedicate the land, improve the park, and then pay the park impact fee on top of that. So in our development agreement, there is other things negotiated. You know, it's a give and take agreement. We have to do over 100 affordable units, and I'm not aware of any project that's actually required to build those at this point. So, you know, we might have a benefit in some areas, but we have a disadvantage in other areas.
And my last question is, you had mentioned that Fairview and Sunny Slope, that took a couple years to build?
2.5 years for design and plan check.
So now, with that in mind, you knew it was going to be 2 years for the next one too. So maybe you should have started earlier on the Clearview and Sunny Slope, knowing that it was going to be a long wait. So that's kind of where I don't understand when you're saying the city of Hollister or the county, they didn't do their part, but you knew it was going to take 2 years. If you would have started earlier, we wouldn't be here right now.
Well, the Valley View signal is just a signal. The Fairview Road intersection was a complete intersections, curb, gutters, sidewalks, water, sewer, storm drain, you know, the entire new street entrance. It was a much more complicated intersection with much more review.
I have nothing else there.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
Right, I want to thank Mr. Curtis for your comments. I want to thank my board call. I can't, I agree with everything that has been said. And this is, it's a challenging issue. And it's a challenging issue, in my opinion, because growth and infrastructure are at odds. Here in San Benito County, years of having a sewer moratorium where you have local residents that haven't been accustomed to this much growth is shocking now. And so, and not only in this county, you have counties and cities across the state that are passing these no growth initiatives. And so I think this is a perfect example. When you have a commitment that's not being honored, it leads to, it could lead to radical alternatives. I look at the oil, the situation that we had here. We had an agreement in place with Citadel. They were going to indemnify the county, and they didn't. They backed away. And look, what was the alternative? We have Measure J. I openly supported Measure J because it just took one bad apple to convince me that I didn't want to do business anymore with them. And unfortunately, we have a situation here. The city of Gilroy recently passed a no-growth initiative last November. And so I think that, when you look at the concerns here in San Benito County with the rapid escalation of growth, we're seeing all these rooftops, and then you have, a situation, of people calling us almost daily, screaming about roads, screaming about infrastructure. And I agree with them. It is a concern, and we are in a very challenging situation to be able to work with our developers to make sure that we have the amenities, that we have the infrastructure in place to accommodate this growth. And at this time, I'm not convinced. I think probably most of my colleagues here and our residents aren't convinced that we're doing a good job in providing that infrastructure before this, this new growth comes. And so I agree. I think I don't envy your position, but I don't envy ours as well. And I think I want to make sure that we honor the agreements that we have in place. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Munson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have mixed views on this. This came before us. We voted to not allow the project to go forward till the lights were in. Now it's back before us again. We have to adhere to the development agreements. We time and again, we have tried to cut deals with developers on hardship cases, and those deals have come back and bit us where we didn't want to be bitten. We ended up in court because of a couple of them. Again, it's probably no-win situation, but maybe I can throw this out to the rest of the board, because this is basically in Supervisor Medina's district. It's across Fairview from mine, or it's across from mine. Maybe, Mr. Chair, you can create an ad hoc committee of Supervisor Medina and I to meet with the developer, see if we can work out some kind of negotiation, and come back at our next meeting and present some options that may be viable.
I can do that. In fact, that was my plan B. If everything fails, maybe take it to a committee. But yeah, I'll support that, and I'll point both you and Supervisor Medina to that subcommittee, with the purpose of coming back to the Board of Supervisors. I don't want to put this forever. I want to bring it back.
Hopefully, our next meeting is at 13th?
June 13th. June 13th.
I see. If we can't work out something before the 13th, then
it's a dead issue.
It's a dead issue.
Yeah, I can live with that. I think that'll be okay. Let me open it up to the public first.
Thank you.
Do you have any more input, Brian?
No.
Thank you. Anyone from the public?
Marty Bishop from Hollister. I spoke on this same item last time, so I thought I'm obligated to come up here again. I can only speak for myself as a member of the public. You say you're tired people don't honor their agreements. Well, I'm tired you sign bad agreements. Why do you always come here after you sign the agreement? I don't remember anybody holding a gun to your head, any member of the Board of Supervisors, any member of the staff, and saying, if you don't sign this agreement, we're going to shoot you. But you always come in here 6 months later, you make big political speeches, all of you, because you're getting heat from your constituents, and you always go, well, we signed a bad agreement. We gave you so much money. We did this. We did that. How about getting a couple of mirrors in front of yourselves? And when you do that, how about just tilt that up and look in the mirror and say, gee, we're pretty stupid because we keep signing bad agreements, okay? I don't blame the developer. If I was a developer around here, I'd come in and ask you for the world. If you want to give it to me and you sign the agreement, that's your problem. So go beat yourself up on those. Don't beat up the developer. As far as the developer not adhering to his part of the agreement, that's his problem. But there are ways to solve this problem, and money is the way to solve this problem. I'm sure of it. First of all, you got to get the city to get moving on there right away. It's pretty stupid if you're going to put the light in and then tear it back out again because they're going to add 20 feet to the right-of-way, which they are, and widen the road, which they are, and put in the sidewalks, what they are. I don't mind waiting a reasonable amount of time to get the sidewalks in. Anybody would. The fact that the city waited till it was too late is a city problem, and because the county and the city don't talk to each other. That has nothing to do with the developer. That's the county and city not talking to each other. The problem is that you've been faced with the same exact problem before. You've tried to put bathrooms in at the ball field and find out it's an education piece of ground, and you had to get a plan approval, I remember this, from the education people at the state. It took forever. Do you remember that? Do you remember that case? We couldn't even get bathrooms in, and now you're complaining that the poor developer's got to go buy his stuff in Colorado and get it approved by Caltrans. That's a state problem. That's not his problem. But as far as his problem goes, it's a money problem. Now, he has to look at how much money he's going to lose if he has to stop building, and he's got to take some of that money and go to the people in Colorado and says, how much do I have to pay you extra for the polls to get to the front of the line? That's the way it works. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public?
Good morning. He signed a development agreement. He needs to adhere by the development agreement. He's dangling a carrot in front of you that 300 people are going to lose their jobs. He's not going to be able to make the parks. He still has to build the parks out there. That's all part of the development agreement. Affordable housing, he's dangling a carrot in front of you. If you don't let me do this, I'm not going to be able to build those affordable housing. Well, he could have split and started maybe with the affordable housing and then gone forward, but no, he needs to make his money, and I totally agree it's business. He knew that he had to order the parts, and they only come from Colorado. He started this on Fairview and on Fairview Road. He knew he was going to have to do this on Sunny Slope Road. He should have ordered the parts already. It's not like he didn't know what was going on. I think he's just dangling the carrot. Let me do what it is that I have to do. He's going to keep the money, save as much money as possible. And I totally get it. It's business. But at the end of the day, he signed an agreement, and he needs to adhere to the agreement because we, the people in Hollister, are the ones that are affected by this. And every day, it's on Facebook. People complain about traffic in Hollister, and it's got to get done. I don't think the ad hoc committee. I don't think I can't imagine what kind of negotiations we can come to. At the end of the day, it has to get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, Chair De La Cruz and County Supervisors. Michael Anderson. My family started Anderson Homes. I work with Brian. And I would like to just say, I hear so much talk about jobs and how we need to bring our businesses here. And I've even heard over the years say we need to reduce red tape. And I've also heard in order to attract jobs, we need new homes. And so I would like to say we've been doing business here for over 20 years. We're really proud of our neighborhoods that we've developed and our homes that we've built. We've probably given thousands of people good-paying jobs here over the last 20 years. Any day you can go to Santana Ranch, you can see we're really proud of how it's taking shape. We have probably 100, 200 people working on site any day, another 100 people off site. I guess it's just we're a little bit, I think Brian has been saying we've been working on this since September 2015, And it's been really frustrating as I think the county keeps losing staff and planners and so many people that were here that were able to actually process this. It doesn't seem like things should take so long. And so it's kind of put us in a difficult position, and we want to do what's right and get this done. And I'm just speaking on behalf of all the jobs out there, all the people. I mean, it seems to me it's so simple. We got hundreds of jobs there. So I do hope that we can find a solution. And also in the future, I think if we can start working on this stuff right away and also figure out how can we get these things done quicker. Why does it take 2 years to get a signal done? I mean, Brian, he works every day on this stuff. It shouldn't be so difficult. I mean, we want to do the right thing, put it in. That's the agreement we signed. But we've been forced with not being able to get anything approved until now. And so I just, hope we can work on something together. And I hope we can keep everyone working. So thank you.
Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I got a question. I heard mention that there was $10 million in traffic fees, but that money can only go to capital improvement. Is that correct, or an assumption? Not to improve the roads, right? Is that?
It can improve
That's
the
my
road.
question.
It can improve the roads and road improvements. It's not for operations, but it's for capital improvements. Traffic needed, necessary traffic improvements.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? I'll close it. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I have real concerns about creating an ad hoc committee, all due respect to the supervisors. I don't know about your guys' calendar, but my calendar is full. I mean, it is jack full of different meetings, and now we're dedicate staff time, dedicate supervisorial time, try and find, some sort of, solution that's amend the development agreement. We have a development agreement. Mr. Richmond's right. Right, wrong, or indifferent. The agreement is the agreement. And I'm sorry that, that there's been some hang-ups on this portion of the stoplight development. But in my business, I have hang-ups all the time and problems. And it costs me money. This situation is a cost of the developer money. But if we start, amending our development agreement, then, if they were to bring something to the table that is to our benefit, then we need something too, not just the stoplight, so to speak. But I don't hear that being a possibility. I believe in addressing infrastructure. It was designed in the development agreement a certain way based on traffic studies at the time. We developed the agreement based on a period of time that we had then. And, we need to make a decision and stick by it. And if it's to defer the stoplight and a safety improvement, so be it. But, I think the board would be better served to make a decision, either abide by the development agreement as it's currently written and stand by it, or start, reconsidering every problem that a developer may have and open up a door that, if you have a problem, come and we'll amend the development agreement in your favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have someone from the City Hallster here, Representative? Do you want to speak on behalf of the City Hallster on this item? I know. I mean...
Came at the wrong time.
You should have said no.
Good morning. My name is Brian Swanson. I serve as the Development Services Director for the City of Hollister. I've met some of you. However, for the ones I haven't, I'd love to maybe meet for a cup of coffee. Ray Espinoza as well. So the city has been working diligently with Anderson Homes on this project, and they're ready to rock, I believe, June 20th after school ends. So, we're looking forward to moving forward on that project. And any questions you may have of me,
I guess my question is, why is it here today? Why is it before us here today? If I was reading backup information that the city Hollister hadn't given them a move forward, kind of built that light. Why now change of heart? Okay, go ahead, do it now.
Well, it's been going through the review process. We have an outside consultant that does all of our traffic review, and so once that's been completed, it's been very extensive, actually going back and forth. But keep in mind that a building permit doesn't necessarily mean occupancy. So I'm not too sure how many of the units they've built thus far are occupied, but I think it's definitely something that the city and the county should work together and have probably better communication between both agencies on getting this project moved forward, because it affects the city residents just as much as the county. So.
Right. Now, is it true that they're going to build a different type of stoplight than it was originally intended for? Is that correct?
The stoplight is essentially the same. The city was not able to acquire the right of way, so the area is a little bit smaller, but the detail and the function of the light will be the same. So.
And that meets the development agreement that the county enter with them.
Yeah, I have not really seen the entire development agreement with the county in Anderson Homes, but we've just, what we see are the plans and some of the conditions that affect the city's portion.
Anything else you want to say on their behalf?
No, you know what? I have a background of economic development, and if San Benito County and the city of Hollister wants to continue to bring retail into the community, we need rooftops, we need people here, and so I think the world of San Benito County. It's why I made the trek out here from Chicago, and I'm very excited to be with the community, and I think we all have to work together, city, county, and private development in the public sector. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Swanson.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, welcome. I haven't had a chance. I'll take you up on that cup of coffee soon.
We'll go to Vertigo.
That sounds perfect to me.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway, so what you've heard what I've said. It's a safety thing for me. We have no sidewalk there. It's bad enough as it is. And people crossing the street, it's hard to cross the street in San Juan Bautista, much less Sunny Slope and heavy use, high-density area that it is. So, it's a safety thing. We defer it. I just can't get past that the person that's injured, whether it's anyone, a kid or adult, doesn't matter, doesn't say, well, county, you deferred a safety improvement, and you're liable. Will the city take the full liability?
Well, I can't speak on the city's behalf, Councilmember Botello, but I think if the county decides to work with Anderson Homes and the city, does what we need to do, there should be some safety measure that, hey, they're starting the 12th. At least they've started the project, and we're going to have to hold them. We have to put their feet to the fire to be able to complete it on time. But that's something that you have to negotiate. I can't. Safety is the number one. Safety over everything, right?
Yeah,
Someone's lives are the most important thing.
And in order to have safety, you've got to have the infrastructure first.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add just two more points. The signal that we're proposed to build does meet the requirements of the development agreement with respect to turning movements and turn lanes and all that. One item that just came up is the theory of occupancy, it takes 6 months roughly for us to build a home. So during that 6-month period, there is no traffic from that house. Simple solution that I'm throwing out there is if you switch the 145 permit issuance to 145 permit occupancies, we could certainly live with that. In other words, you don't final any homes beyond 145 permits until that signal's done. You know, that 6-month window is enough time for us to get the signal done. In other words, we would make that effort or stop at that point.
Supervisor Bartello?
Yeah, the only problem I have with that, Brian, is that wouldn't the traffic study have taken that into account, that it was 145 occupied homes? That is what triggers the stoplight, not the additional, that it's in advance.
Well, the traffic study is based on occupied home. In other words, that's what's generating the traffic. What I'm saying is the permits that we would get, in other words, we would ask for more than 145 permits, but they would not be finalized until the signal's done. In other words, we have a home that may sit for sale for 4 or 5 months, and there's no traffic generated from it, but that goes into the 145-day count. So if your building department limited the amount of finals to 145, that would allow us the 6-month lead time to construct and get the signal done before there's any traffic generated. That would be a easy solution to adopt, and that would satisfy our needs.
I'd like to make a motion.
Supervisor Medina?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to move to deny the deferral of traffic signal installation on the Valley View and Sunny Slope Road intersection for the Santana Ranch subdivision.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's kind of supersedes that. So if your motion fails, I will create the committee of you and Munzer's. If it passes, then it's mute.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call on that vote.
Rivas,
I support the motion.
Munzer,
No.
De La Cruz,
No.
Vitello,
Yes.
Medina.
Yes.
Okay. And the motion to deny and continue as agreed goes forward 3-2. Okay. So bottom line is built that street light before you get your next permit. Okay, let's move on. All right. Item number 14. Larry?
Yeah, we have James here to discuss this out of our RMA office. Jim, you have 2 more items to go before you're up. I know you're excited, and you're eager.
Yeah.
You want to go, but
Overachiever there. I like that, Jim. We need more like you, overachievers.
So, thank you, Chairman, members of the board. This item is a contract senior planner level position. When Larry Perlin and I came on board at the RMA, there was literally no planning or building staff to conduct basic public services and very reduced road maintenance staff. We have now hired a county employee, senior planner, to help with Michael Kelly, who was the only really planner in the office when I started here. We've also brought on building inspection staff and code enforcement staff. This position is really, and that number is high. I don't think we'll come close to spending that number. This is really backfilling Chandel Clark's position, and she's indicated that she will be coming back to the county in July. So if that happens, then this contract will not, be void. So, and I just put it out for the entire calendar year, just so we could be, have a little bit of a buffer there in terms of what happens going forward. So that's what this is.
Oh, boy. Questions? Supervisor Medina?
Okay. We all know that I've made myself heavily involved in the RMA arena. And I want to first take the time to, thank both of you for what you've done. You've came into a organization that needs a lot of fixing. Mm-hmm. And I know you have, with all due respect, decades and decades of experience to turn that place around. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of what the main goal is. Our goal is to recruit and retain employees that have that, like the gentleman from the city of Hollister, they have that fight of, he was saying he loves the county or the city. We want employees like that. So I want to make sure people understand that we're not, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're not replacing our county employees with consultants or temporary people. We are in the midst of the change agent to bring in the right people, to recruit and retain individuals, and with all due respect, you guys will go back to your hometown once everything is in good order, and you'll leave us with a fully functioning RMA department.
That is exactly our goal. And one of the things that we've really worked hard on is to have more like front counter public support. There was virtually no public support at the front counter, and we're trying to build that 4-6 people deep now. And we're implementing, with the help of Louis Valdez, our new Acela permit software.
And then the last thing I'd like to mention is the interaction with our employees from the consultants, the direction. I think I spoke with Louis over the weekend, and that direction needs to come from a county employee. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, if I may add to that. So we've had internal meetings, and Louis will be missioned out in that office starting very soon once we have an actual meeting with our HR office and RMA. And he'll be there in the mornings, as from a managerial point of view, as well as in the afternoon. So, so I just want to make sure the board is aware of that coming from a county employee. And there has been tremendous strides to address some of the core infrastructure issues. I mean, we're talking decades of things that have been in file cabinets, and people don't really know what's happening. The actual processes need to be revamped, which is being worked on. So there's a lot of heavy lifting there, and as well as the addressing staff. I think we have 8 vacancies right now, with one coming up soon. So we're going to have 9 vacancies. So I've asked Georgia to come up here real quick to kind of give a report out a little bit of where we're at from that perspective and kind of what the plans are on that.
Thank you.
Let me back up before I start there and go back to your comment, Supervisor Medina, with respect to direction coming from a county employee. Direction in terms of the priorities, what to do, what needs to happen, and when people need to tell someone that they're going to be off, request time off, those kinds of things. Those do need to come through Mr. Perlin and Mr. Walgren. One of the issues that was at odds with respect to direction from county employees had to do with if the county took formal discipline. These gentlemen are still dealing with the operations and whether or not there was some policy that violated action, those kinds of things. If we were to move to any kind of disciplinary action with any county employee, we would have that co-signed by a county employee, a manager in the county, whether that be Mr. Valdez or our CAO Ray Espinoza. So let me jump back now to recruitment. As Ray indicated, there's about...
Georgia,
sorry.
Sorry about that. Supervisor Munzer?
This whole issue of direction coming from county employee concerns me. We hired these gentlemen as our department heads. We expect our department heads to give direction to our staff, whether they are consultants or county employee. That we still expect them to give direction to county staff. Now, they may choose to utilize someone else to relay the message, but that's their choice. I don't think we're cutting their legs out from underneath them if we say something else.
Mr. Chairman, man, I think that's what Georgia had mentioned, that they're still going to handle the operational stuff. They're still going to. One of the things that has come up is that, as I mentioned a few minutes ago or a second ago, is that we have so many vacancies. There's so many issues. There's so many meetings. I mean, I think Larry and James are kind of dittoing Supervisor Patello's comments earlier about all the meetings that you have. We have a lot of meetings that we need to attend and to address. And so one of the reasons why that I mentioned that we would probably be having Louis go out there, we have to meet internally about this. But I think from a managerial point of view, just to make sure these projects are on task, making sure things are getting across the finish line and just not falling by the wayside. And that's the reason why I was referring to we would have internal staff there to assist that until we shore up that office and get more staff. And then at that point, we would take more of a back seat and just assist when we're needed. So those are my points.
You're absolutely right, Supervisor Munzer. These gentlemen are in charge, and they will give staff direction. They will dictate how the office is operated. If there are policy changes, we will follow any normal course of action in terms of notifying our bargaining groups and those kinds of opportunities. The only thing that we did say that we would do is if these gentlemen needed to take some kind of formal discipline that required reducing something to writing within the office, and that would normally come from a department head, is we would have a county manager sign that as well, in addition to these folks. But still, it is their direction and their operation. That's really the only distinction.
Okay.
So that way there is some assurance that someone at a management level in the county, most likely the county administrator's office, would have seen that, would know what was happening.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the vacancies?
Yes.
Okay, so as Ray mentioned, there are 9. We have 3 planner recruitments open, 2 open, 1 just closed, so we anticipate a hire there, I think at the senior planner level. We're also still looking for 2 more planners. As James mentioned, Shondell Clark is out, and I think that's what this gap is for, is to help fill in some of that. Hopefully she'll be back in July. There are a number of other vacancies. We are actively recruiting for a building inspector. We do have a contract person serving as the chief building inspector currently, and we started to recruit for that, but what we really wanted for these gentlemen, or what these gentlemen wanted, was to allow that person to operate for a while and make some recommendations to them in terms of what was needed before we actually went back and opened a recruitment to get that county employee. Now, part of their task, again, is the broader picture of what should this organization look like? What are the boxes called? How many of the boxes should there be in the various areas of the RMA? So rather than get too many permanent county employees and then have a recommendation come in that doesn't use this box, it puts your board in a tougher spot. It puts people we've hired in a very difficult position. So we're trying to find that balance. But there's no doubt that we need planners, without a doubt, and that's why they're actively recruiting for those. So we hope that we would hire a planner from this recruitment that closed yesterday, and that we'll get 2 more. And then potentially, as that backlog reduces, then we have county employees supporting the planning effort, and I would ask James to confirm that. Okay. So that's kind of where we are in the big picture of the planning world. There's a few vacancies on the other side, and part of that is in administration, and that was a recent vacancy that we're just actually hoping to talk about this week. Is this the right position? Is this the right job class? Is this the right organization? Are these people in the right places before we hire someone else and find out we've just replicated our past? So there'll be some determinations on that, and so that we can move forward.
Thank you, Georgia. Mark, you still have the floor.
Good to go. Thank you very much. Appreciate everything.
Ray?
And I've also missioned both Larry and James on coming back to the board and giving a status report of RMA, org chart, and kind of, where we need assistance at, what we need to do to shore up the office. But we've made some headway, but I know that they've only been on board for a few months. It hasn't been very long. It's probably been a year's worth of work in a few months. But yeah, they've been on board for a short period of time. So we need to have them come back and give a full presentation for us.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
I appreciate the comments from the CAO, because the one document that I am missing on this agenda item is the vacancies and the planning, as far as our long-term picture. I have a difficult time approving a contract of this amount for an employee that's going to be, I think it says in the report, work only 3 days a week. That's a concern. And so I think that, in order for me to support something like this, I need to have an absolutely clear picture on our plans moving forward, as far as from an organization standpoint, as far as how is this going to help increase staffing in the future, and what is the long-term plans. I appreciate everything that was said, but I hopefully in the future you guys could bring something back that will that will indicate that we're working towards this goal.
Actually that will be afforded to us, because you're going to come back for other positions, correct?
Yeah, that's
so
correct.
In that, have that matrix available to the board.
That's correct.
Supervisor Medina?
I just want to make sure that I'm thinking right now. This person that we have slated in here for the possibility of making $95,000 for the remainder of the year is to augment Shandell. If Shandell is to return, this person would no longer be in that position.
That's correct.
Yes, I just wanted to, I wanted to make sure that was.
And we're expecting Shandell Clark to be back in July, but we're not certain.
All right. Thank you. I'll open up to the public. Anyone from the public? No one?
Oh, here he comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marty Richard from Hollister. I'd like to ask a question first, which is to get a perspective. So we have 9 vacancies out of how many positions? So I have some understanding of what shortage means. I mean, is it 9 out of 10,000? I don't think so. I think it's probably a smaller number than that. Can anyone offhand give me a number?
We'll give you the information after.
Well, I need it for my speech.
We don't have the answer right now.
You don't have the answer. Okay, well, I assume, understanding how many people you employ, that 9 vacancies in this area would be a lot of vacancies. Okay? An awful lot of vacancies. And I'm going to assume, since no one's mentioned it, that they all happened at the same day. Everybody was riding in a van down 25, and unfortunately, because of the poor road network, they had an accident. Luckily, no one died, but they're all laid up now for 6 months. Okay, we know that didn't happen. We know what happened was the ship developed a hole, and the hole just kept getting bigger and bigger, and more water ran in, and more water ran in. And now we're worried about what it costs to hire somebody to push through the hole to stop the water from coming in. You're lucky you could find somebody. That's my speech. Sure, money doesn't grow on trees, but you have 9 people you're not paying because no one is in those positions. So whatever you pay somebody, do I prefer it be a permanent person? Sure. It's just like if I get hauled into the emergency room and I need an immediate operation, I prefer it be the best surgeon in the hospital. Oh, by the way, if he's not working that night, I'll take anybody, okay? So I think you need to move. I think you need to hire more than less, because at some point in time, you're going to have to step back and say, here's what the organization needs to look like. Here's what every job needs to be qualified to do. I understand that's your intention, but if you cheap up at the beginning, if you do not get that information, we'll be sitting here 2 years from now saying, oh, we just let the whole staff go again. This would make it the, I don't know, 3rd time around or whatever. And we just let them all go again, and now we're going to reorganize. So I recommend you put the money in up front, build the foundation you need, and move on. I'm glad you're hiring somebody, because to me, this seems somewhat related to the previous discussion when the gentleman in the audience says, why does it take 2.5 years to get my plans approved? Duh. Maybe the reason is there are no planners on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else in the public? None? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move for staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. We'll take a 5-minute break. Hey, Barbara, one tell you one of the that when I called you, very quickly, yeah. Like the less you say, the more gets done. A lot of managers talk themselves into the job. Hey, Jerry.
Oh, no, wait a minute. It was 11 o'clock, I think. I was sleeping. I was snoring. Why were you asleep at 11?
Well, at least he doesn't call you on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
It sounds like you get...
You know, and I can't say that for supervisor. That was too funny.
What did I do with my paper?
Well, I think we'll just continue. Let's go. You gonna call him?
He's talking to the governor.
Go ahead. All right, the mics are on. Okay, item number 15, discussion regarding California state legislative that would provide for the consolidation of San Benito County departments, including the offices of the county treasurer, tax collector, the county clerk, auditor, recorder, election / everything, and the county assessors, and requests for board direction to staff. Okay, you want CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as the board probably recalls, we discussed this particular item approximately 2 years ago. in the wake of consolidating a few offices and going through a study. We had an optimity study that we actually worked on to look at the viability of consolidating offices. RMA office and other offices have been looked at. I know there's been the consolidation of EMS into OES and a few other offices. With that, your board did request the possibility of elected offices. So staff, since over 2 years ago, was directed by your board to look at the possibility of consolidating elected offices. There was some research that was done, and there's government section codes that were passed from local jurisdictions, including Santa Cruz, the consolidation of elected offices, tax collector, treasurer, auditor's office, as well as the assessor and recorder's elections office, with the possibility of there being a potential savings for the county. The board did request us to look at the possibility of having this item carried on a bill through the legislature. So we got a letter from your board. We went ahead and looked at that. Again, that was just giving the board the ability, if there was a retirement at one of the offices, that would allow us, at least, or allow the board the flexibility to possibly consolidate. So with that, we're here today to just discuss this item in open session. I've invited the 3 elected officials here, our tax collector, treasurer, Mary Lou Andretti, our auditor, controller, Joe Paul Gonzalez, and our assessor, Tom Slavich, to be able to comment if the board would like for them to comment, to give their input. But really, that's kind of where we're at. We've worked with Anna's office per the board's direction to possibly carry it on the Omni bill or some sort of bill to have that accomplished this year. With that being said, I think that it is on a 2-year bill, which probably would not work if there was a retirement. But so that's it, Mr. Chair. We just wanted to open this up to have a discussion with your board and the elected officials. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We've actually set up a meeting for June. Chase, when is it? June?
The phone call?
Yes, a phone call.
June 9th.
We have a tentative schedule meeting with Honorable Member Ana Caballero and Mary Lou's invited to the meeting, a telephone conversation. She wants input from everyone involved in San Miguel County on what direction to go, because as Ray said it, there's 1 or 2 ways how to go about this. The first way is to push on it for this year's legislative changes or wait for the next 2-year cycle. And because Mary Lou's position comes up for re-election in 2018, is that correct, Joe? Yes, yes, Mary Lou, thank you. Up in 18, if we were to wait for 2 years, then that opportunity, that option will not be presented to the board. And so staff is asking for directions. Shall we continue that option or not? And so we're here to listen to the board and Mary Lou and anyone else involved in this item. So any board members wish to express their feelings or opinions? Supervisor Medina?
Okay, there's a couple things. When I hear the word consolidation, in my point of view, I look at something that should be more efficient, and there should be a hard dollar cost savings when I think of the word consolidation. Now I go back and look at what we've done in the past. The RMA office, we consolidated. Was that a win or a lose? The jury's still out. So that is something you can think about yourself. Then I look at the workload. The workload has to go somewhere. This workload would, if I'm thinking right, would go to a full-time county employee. A full-time county employee, and correct me if I'm wrong, is more expensive than an elected official. Simply because an elected official, there is no sick time, there is no vacation. So if this individual was to work for 10 to 15 years in this county under this umbrella here, he or she would have all that extra sick time and vacation time, whereas an elected official does not have that baggage. So right now, what I'm looking at is I spend a lot of time looking at the 58 counties, people that have consolidated, people that haven't consolidated, and a vast majority have not consolidated this. They've left the position as it is. So how I look at this, once again, I don't see it becoming more efficient or hard dollar cost savings. So I'm opt to just keep the position as it is.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Patello?
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been looking at this for quite some time. And as far as gaining efficiencies in the county, last budget item, we were talking about the RMA department, planning department in particular. And I'm not just looking at it from the top position, the elected director's position, but also the efficiencies from top to bottom. And in the past, we've, what's going on at the planning department is not isolated to just the planning department. It's countywide. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from, our employees is the opportunity for mobility, upward mobility, and training and cross training, and being able to get promotions and so forth. And I think it's not so much of a cost savings as improvement of efficiencies. We've had problems in the past keeping the doors open for the taxpayers. I think during some lean times, lean staffing times, and by combining departments, I think you have more people to draw from, and services can be rendered a lot more effectively. And a lot of small counties, and if you look at the list, there are mostly rural counties that are considering this. Maybe in San Francisco County or Los Angeles County, Monterey County, a big county like that, you don't necessarily have to do something or consider this. But we have a hard time not only drawing rank and file people that are, qualified for the position, but perhaps even higher up directors. And I'm supportive of having the option of doing this. One of these days, Mary Lou's retire. I don't know if that's on her plate this election go around or not, but I want to make sure we maintain some flexibility on how best serve our citizens. So I would like to have that option.
Okay, so what you're saying is that
that we should ask for Assemblywoman Caballero to consider the trailer bill.
Even if it's 2 years or current, it doesn't matter. Long as it's
I think it would have to be the 2 years.
To be 2 years.
I think.
But Mr. Chair, I would suggest that we would try to get it on and get it approved this year, if at all possible. It gives the board the flexibility.
Right.
If not, it will probably have to wait 5 years down the road. Just so the board is aware of the timing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And this is very important because when we meet, telephone conversation, Honorable Member Ana Cabello is going to want the board's position too.
Right, and I've had a conversation with her, and she expressed, the benefits to our county and citizens, and make sure that there's a cost efficiency as well as this is the direction that the county wants to go in.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I view this as part of a long process that we have been in. When I first took office, the county was in negotiations with the city to consolidate law enforcement. That ended up being decided that it wasn't going to be a good fit. It didn't happen. We were also in negotiations with them on fire. We went that way. We consolidated with the city, the two fire departments. We also looked at consolidating Health and Human Services Department and Behavioral Health. And again, we decided that was not a good fit, and we didn't go down that route. We looked at the RMA, which was Building, Public Works, Integrated Waste. We decided that was a good fit. We went down that way. During the recession, our employees were coming to us time after time. Don't balance the budget solely on our backs, cut from the top also. We have done that in some instances we haven't. This is, I think it's just a continuation of that. I view this, and all these things we looked at did not need action from Sacramento. This particular one, we need action from Sacramento. I feel we need to go ahead and have Sacramento act on our behalf, and then we can come back and look at this again, make sure it is a good fit for us, either go forward with it or decide it's not a good fit and then not go forward with it. But we need Sacramento to act and needs to act under the current legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, having worked for the Assemblywoman and known her expectations, I guarantee you that she's going to want to know why this is necessary for our county and what do we gain for it. What do we gain from this? And so, certainly, I think this is the type of issue that has the potential to be very ugly and nasty, because we could throw personalities into it. We could throw our elected officials into it, and it makes it look like we're trying to fire Mary Lou. Are we? I don't know. That's why I think that we need a very deep level of engagement from every single person, Mary Lou, all of the elected officials that this impacts. Because I certainly don't want to make a decision, and as a board, we shouldn't make a decision. We shouldn't ask our regional representative in Sacramento to make a decision that could have some personal, it could lead to some personal issues. I mean, it's a lose-lose for Ms. Caballero. It's a lose-lose for us. I think, obviously we're all here because we want to do what's in the best interest of our county, certainly looking at other models and see what's going on. I remember when I went, I lived in San Bernardino my whole life. I've lived in this bubble here, and then when I went to work in Monterey County, I said, you guys do things a little differently. Their organization, their county is organized differently, and every other county is organized differently. So we have to make sure that this reorganization makes sense for San Benito County. And I think that's going to take, if we're going to, knowing Anna, she's going to want to know that we put in the effort here and that we've crossed everything, we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's, and that we're taking to her a solid plan, not one that's driven by local politics. And so I think that's what we got to, sit down with Mary Lou, we got to sit down with everyone involved to see, again, why this is necessary and what do we gain from it. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Rios, let me ask you a question. And what do you mean by local politics? Because it is local politics, the discussion that we're having right now, and it should start at the local level.
Yeah, I think it should start at the local level. I think Supervisor Medina said it best. I think he said, we talk about consolidation, about efficiency. We've been talking about this for a while, and I think that we have an idea of doing this for specific reasons, whether it's for efficiency purposes. I don't know, but I think that what we need to have is a broader discussion with everyone involved, all participants involved, so that way, this doesn't look like, hey, we're trying to fire Mary Lou.
I see what you're saying.
I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I just think back to the time when I wasn't part of that board, but I was working for Anna at the time, when Scatini, our former marshal, his position got eliminated, I think in the middle of his term or right at the end of his term, and that wasn't any fun dealing with it, let me tell you. That I think that required legislative action. And, so I think that we need to approach this very delicately, but I know time is not in our favor, but we've got to do everything we can. We must do everything we can to make sure that we prepare the Assemblywoman with as much information, because that's what she's going to ask for.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. I'm going to reserve my comments so I can hear from specifically Mary Lou, because it is her position we're talking. Mary Lou, you would like to speak at the podium?
Good morning, members of the board and chair. Well, using the legislation to make some approval on that is really in my feeling, a maneuver to make it easier for the board to just combine offices by ordinance. And my feeling is that this is government by and for the people, and that treasurer and auditor are voted in by the local electorate, and that the local electorate should have a voice and a choice on this matter. And that being said, that it should be actually put forth on a ballot in the future. So that's my feeling about it. And as far as efficiencies, I think that most departments are strapped because they don't have the staffing. Well, if you staff the departments properly, then you will have efficiency, because, if we care enough about our departments, which I certainly do, and I'm sure that the other folks do, we will make every effort to make it, as efficient as possible, which is what I've been doing. And the fact that we closed the doors for a while, that's what I had to do in order to get things done. And I've not been staffed properly for more than 10 years. I don't have a management staff person or an assistant. I met the new auditor assistant yesterday, and that is the second assistant that the auditor will have. The assessor has one, and I have none for the last 10 years. So I'm doing the best that I can, and if you staff me properly, I'm going to do better.
Thank you.
There's lots of reasons why not combining offices. And I have about 6 points that I'd like to make. And permitting consolidation of treasurer, tax collectors, and assessors via a county ordinance is a violation of local voter rights, specifically for what I just mentioned earlier. These are arguments that both treasurers and tax collectors and also audit controllers had. Cost savings does not exist unless you do a big analysis on a plan. Qualifications. These are two distinct, separate disciplines, and they require years of training and experience. And this would be the treasurer and the auditor. This also is a significant financial power concentration. It would be one person overseeing all the financials, and it takes away the checks and balances. Let's see. And then number 5, it's the independence and accountability. That would be also violated, because now if there's only one person in charge of all the financials, then the board could easily pressure that person to do it their way or no way. And then, of course, losing the voters' right to choose. So those are my 6 points that I want to make. I can go further and explain why each one, if you want to hear it, but those are the important parts.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Any questions for fellow supervisors? Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Joe, Paul, or Tom, any discussion?
Chair and Board. Currently, my office is consolidated. It's the county clerk, auditor, controller. The controller is the ex officio duty of the auditor. It's register of voters, which is the ex officio duty of the clerk, and county recorder. A lot of disciplines involved there. It's I stand ready to do whatever the board wants to do. That's my position.
Perfect.
It's completely in my view, a decision of the policy-making, legislative board of the county to make that decision. So I stand ready to whatever decision the board makes.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe Palm? None. Thank you, Joe.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Tom Slavich, County Assessor. And I've thought about this good and hard. We looked at this back in 2005, and we're talking about reshuffling the offices, and nothing happened back then. Originally, I thought this was a good idea, but after second thought and actually talking to some of the other counties, I feel that the offices just should be left as is. In Merced County, they combined the assessor, clerk, recorder elections several years ago, and in talking to that county, they're now considering maybe separating those offices in the future. My main concern is the assessor's office and the functions of that office. Right now, we have a lot of stuff going on in the county. The office is quite impacted. The other issue is we're the only county in the state where the assessor's office administers the Williamson Act program, which is normally done by building and planning. But back in 1968, building and planning said, hey, can you guys do this temporarily? And we've been doing it since then. We enjoy it, and no complaints. We've been accustomed to doing it. It's not a big issue. But as far as expanding the assessor's office, there's one point that I wanted to bring out, and a lot of assessor's officers are beginning to do this, is actually taking GIS under the assessor's office. And right now it's under IT, and if you looked at various counties throughout the state, it's either under IT, building and planning, and now going into the assessor's office in some counties. So there's a major benefit there, I think, in the future. Our mapping, basically, our department creates the base map. It's the foundation of the GIS. And by having both our mapping and GIS in the office, I think that would benefit. We could talk about addresses, line work, boundaries, lot line adjustments, and so forth. So I think that, as far as consolidating, I think that would be the department that the assessors would like to have. So, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? No? Thank you, Tom. All right, I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone from the public?
Richard Ferrer, 1131 Union Heights. As a user, you guys try to, we've asked the counties, or people have asked to consolidate something. Of all the things you could pick to try to consolidate, this is not one of them. These are completely different disciplines. It requires different things. I like it that they're elected officials and the people have a choice. I use the assessor's office. I'm in there almost on a weekly basis. You haven't heard any complaints over this, so if it's not broke, don't fix it. Now, you consolidated Public Works and Building Department with an employee out there, and I'm a big user out there, and it was a disaster. The individual you had out there was not user-friendly. You get somebody in there that's not an elected official in consolidating these departments, the public has lost any input they have on it. These three individuals have done a great job. We have no problems with our elections. We haven't had any problems with anything. Tom's group, the assessor's office, does a great job. It's not broke, don't fix it. There's enough problems in your other departments, especially your Public Works and your building departments that you're trying to address. Go on, put more time on that. But this is nothing, that's something we should not address and even talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Anyone else from the public? None? I'll close it. Okay. Here are my comments. Because it really doesn't have the full board support on going on one way or the other, I'm not going to support talking to Honorable Member Ana Caballero. I think Supervisor Rivas is right. I think of all five of us, he knows her more than we do, especially in policies and in politics. I would incline to take Supervisor Rivas' advice on this one and just didn't do anything, just leave it alone. Maybe revisit it in 2 years or so. If Mary Lou does decide to run for re-election, we can revisit it again, 2 years, and then hopefully we can get the support of, if it's Ana Caballero still on the Assembly or someone else, then we will revisit. But for the time being, I will support Supervisor Rivas and Medina's on this position. Okay. All right. Okay, move on to number 16, Health and Human Services Agency. Jim?
Now it's time.
Good morning. I do want to say, go Warriors.
Yes.
King LeBron John. Cavaliers, man.
So I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible, but just to kind of go over where we've been. But about 3 years ago, we were given direction to work on resolving the homeless issue in San Benito County. So this is kind of an update on where we are and asking for the board to approve some actions today. We based it upon some values that we had, which was around the issue of trying to get people housing, around the issues of trying to get people employment, around the issues of trying to keep people engaged in things. And so we have stuck to that, and our target population is homeless, at risk of homeless, high users of multi-agency services. And more recently, in working with the probation department, we have added those who have a connection with the criminal justice system. Because Ted and I had some conversations about that and kind of felt like those were populations that we could work together on. So whole person care is one of the grants that became available. It's a Medicaid grant. In the first round, we did not apply. In fact, in the first round, there were no counties under 100,000 who did apply. We had conversations with Department of Health Care Services about that, and felt like we might do better with a California small county collaborative. We do have a collaborative working with Mariposa and Plumas County, and the funds actually will be approved at the end of this month, and we'll get a letter from the state with that funding approval. The funding for this program actually goes back to January 2017. Prop 47 was announced in December 2016. We looked at a collaborative approach to that, but within our county, we decided that it would be good for Health and Human Services and Probation to go forward with this, to be able to integrate the Proposition 47 funds into the whole person care funds. Those funds have not been awarded, but we have been invited to the award session, which will be on June the 8th. And so we expect to have both whole person care and Proposition 47 funds committed before the end of this fiscal year. County Medical Services Programs put out a small grant to serve that population in the community that is not otherwise covered by any other kind of health care. And they put out a grant of $225,000, $75,000 a year in order to be able to serve that population. So we're taking that money and we're combining it with whole person care and Prop 47 to kind of work on everything together. Over the last 3 years, we've worked with community partners and tried to keep our community partners in the loop on this. It includes our public agencies, behavioral health, probation. We've done work, the sheriff shows up for the meetings, the community-based organizations, Emmaus House, Sun Street, our health partners, Hazel Hawkins and Community Health Foundation, and our housing partners, particularly our local housing authority, have all been involved in working on these issues. I picked up something a couple of weeks ago on some work that was done out of UC Berkeley that said things that work. And the only reason I put this up here is because I think it validates the work that we've been doing for the last 3 years, to say that there actually are some studies that now begin to show that this approach that we're taking in San Benito County is supported in the literature and supported by research. Shelter services. We wanted to move to a year-round shelter program with access. It will provide different kinds of services and be integrated with a support services program that will also be put into the building that we purchased at 1161. The shelter services program, as we move forward today with both this item and the next item, we will be on track to open up shelter services on a year-round basis in November of this year. These are just we did kind of a chart that's in there comparing the guiding principles of whole person care, Prop 47, and the CMSP grant to show to you that they actually do have things in common. We have a funding plan, and we've used various forms of funding for this. And all of that funding is in place or will be in place within the next few weeks. The only things we're waiting on is the final letters on whole person care and Prop 47, which we know we're going to get.
Hey, Jim, Prop 47,
yes.
That's not the transfer of money, right?
Prop 47 was the proposition that was put on the ballot in 2014, I think it was, and the purpose is to provide services in the community rather than keeping people in jails. There's lots of discussion that went on about that, but since we have it and since these funds are available for this purpose, Ted and us agreed that it would be good to try to put this all together into a single approach. Okay? So we have an integrated funding approach. You can read all these words. Basically what this says is we're trying to leverage and use all the funding resources that we have to minimize the need for local dollars. So that's part of what we have tried to put into this design. We're going to be able to draw down, just on the fact that we have an approved application, we will be able to draw down the first 6 months of operations cost for whole person care, which will be about $500,000. And I've talked with Ted about being able to put some seed money into Prop 47 so we can kind of get that off the ground. We have a management plan at Health and Human Services, whereas we are currently right now recruiting for a community housing services coordinator. That will be at a program manager level, which position is already in our budget. We expect to have outreach, assessment, and engagement services staff that will be part of this and eventually be co-located in the building at 1161. If based upon the action that we take today, we will be putting out a contract for the shelter services. We recommend that we contract those services out as opposed to having county staff do that, because there are providers out there who have 15 to 20 years of experience doing this, and we would have to kind of learn it from ground one. And we think let's use the experience that's out there in the community. The CMSP services will probably do with staff. Whole person care services will probably do with both a combination of staff and contracting. The Prop 47 services will be contracted out. That's part of the contract requirement with the state. And our community partners, as they work and connect with us, will be able to build in incentive payments to keep them engaged. These are the community partners that are working with us. Probably a familiar list. This is the California Small County Collaborative. At the moment in the collaborative is Mariposa and Plumas County along with San Benito County. We are going to use the CMSP County Medical Services Program as what is called our third-party administrator. Their governing board will act on that this Thursday, and they will take on the responsibility for fiscal data management and helping us with the management of the collaborative. And we think that's good for us because that keeps all of that in a single agency that is used to working with counties like ours. We also have had other counties approach us with the idea of becoming part of this collaborative on the data management side. They're looking at the data management systems that we're considering, and they're thinking that might work for us. And so as a part of our agreement with CMSP as a third-party administrator, we will ask them to consider allowing other counties to come into this arrangement for the purposes of data systems and data management, which will eventually get us to the point where we begin to build some common data across small counties in California. And one of the issues that small counties in California face in terms of applying for grants and so forth is not having enough people to be able to show that statistically valid results. So by beginning to expand this into a collaborative that crosses more than one county, we begin to expand that base and are able to be more competitive in terms of applying for grants for small counties in California. Again, just a little thing, we want to try to do collaborative data so that the data we collect is good from county to county, and it shows that the results that we're getting from per county to county can be validated. The requested actions we're asking of the board today is to allocate one social worker 1-2 position to Human Services for whole person care, allocate one office assistant for whole person care, authorize Health and Human Services and County Council to release requests for qualifications and proposals for contracted activities that will be conducted at the center. In this case, the first release would be for the shelter services part of it. Direct the agency and county council will accept and review responsive requests and to return to the board for approval of a recommended contractor. Authorize the agency and county council to accept and sign the whole person care contract with the Department of Health Care Services. The reason we're asking for this is because the turnaround time, once they submit that to us, and they're submitting drafts of that right now, but once they submit it to us, the turnaround time is probably going to be a short turnaround time, and there will be not time to agendize that. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and agree and then come back to the board and let you know what we've got, and also come back to the board with probably several other items over the next couple of months about funding and contracting and staffing. So there's a number of pieces that will need to be continue to come back to the board, for your review and approval. And then authorize us to sign contracts with Mariposa and Plumas County for the claiming process for whole person care. So basically what we'll do is act as the lead entity in order to do that until CMSP takes over as the third-party administrator. So those are the things we're asking you to do today. Please keep in mind this is step one in a number of steps that on this issue that will come back to your board over the next couple of months. So we think that we have kind of spent the last 3 years kind of bringing all of this together, and we hope that we will have community success.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Munzer?
Nothing.
Supervisor Botello? Supervisor Medina? Anyone from the public? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Munzer, second by Botello. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you very much. If it wasn't for the political will of this board, we wouldn't be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
And if I could just make sure that the board is okay with a clarification of that question, that would be subject to approval of county council if they haven't assigned, if we haven't seen those final contracts. If there's any issues with that, then we can always bring that back to the board.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is adopt the plans and specifications for the Homeless Services Center Phase 1 project and authorize the advertising for bids. Adam.
Hi there, good morning. Ordinarily, this would probably be a consent item, but we wanted to make sure it followed up Jim's presentation, so you had all the facts there. The plans for Phase 1 of the homeless shelter are ready to go to bid. We do have a bit of a tight funding deadline to get the funds expended, but we should be able to make that. We also have, hopefully, a little bit of an advantageous bidding climate right now. We do have a contractor working on the food bank right next door that's very interested in this project as well. So it's a good time to get out there. We are estimated at almost $1.1 million for construction. That food bank project, the low bid, was about 15% higher than their estimates, so some of those new numbers have been factored into our estimate to try to get a more accurate and realistic number. So that's all we're here for, unless there's any questions on the design or anything else.
Perfect. Supervisor Medina?
When is the project going to stop, or when are they finished from the food bank? Do you know?
I believe they are scheduled early August, if I remember right.
Thank you. Supervisor Patello?
No, I don't have any questions.
Supervisor Munzer?
None.
Supervisor Rivas?
None, Mr. Chair.
Open it up to the public? None. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve the plans and specs for the Homeless Service Center Phase 1 of the project and authorize advertising for bids.
Is there a second? Motion by Patello, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. Closed session, County Council.
All right.
19 is closed session conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives Allison Hayek, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Linda Casillas, Georgia Cochran, Steve Coffey, employee organizations, institutions association, law enforcement, management employees group, SEIU Local 521, SEIU Local 2015.
Okay.
Deputy Sheriff's Association, confidential management, appointed department heads, unrepresented employees. 20, closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to 54956.9, number of cases 2. Closed session authorized by section 54956.9 D2 and E1.
Okay, we'll go to closed session now. Oh, is there anyone for the public? They're done?